The Galactic Empire had never known fear. For centuries, it expanded without challenge, consuming worlds and bending civilizations to its will. It was the pinnacle of order, a vast network of dominance stretching across the stars. But for the first time in its history, the Empire faced an enemy it could not comprehend. Humanity had arrived. At first, they seemed insignificant, a minor species from a planet called Earth. The Empire dismissed them, just as it had dismissed thousands of other civilizations before. When humanity refused to surrender its sovereignty, the Emperor authorized an invasion. His fleets burned human colonies, obliterated their outposts, and laid waste to their defenses. It should have been over in days. Instead, it became something else entirely. No matter how many ships the Empire destroyed, humanity adapted. Their forces should have been crushed under the weight of imperial might. Yet they fought with an efficiency that defied all logic. They did not rely on superior numbers or advanced technology. Instead, they won battles before they even began. Their strategies were unpredictable, their responses immediate. They sabotaged supply lines, turned imperial forces against each other, and always seemed to be one step ahead. Entire fleets vanished, command structures collapsed, and planets once thought secure erupted in rebellion. It was a war that the Empire could not win. But more terrifying than their military prowess was their restraint. The humans did not retaliate with the same brutality. They could have laid waste to imperial core worlds, yet they did not. They never escalated beyond what was necessary, and that was what frightened the Empire most. The Emperor, a being of towering stature with silvered skin and eyes that had witnessed centuries of conquest, summoned his war council. His advisors, generals, admirals, scholars of strategy, stood in silent humiliation. They had never lost before. Now defeat loomed like a storm. The Emperor leaned forward, his voice heavy with anger. "Explain," he demanded. His high strategist, a veteran of 1,000 campaigns, stepped forward. His posture was rigid, his face unreadable. "Sire, our intelligence suggests that humanity is operating on a different paradigm. They do not fight for conquest, nor do they fear defeat. They fight only as necessary, never more. Every time we escalate, they adjust, counter, and force us into submission without direct confrontation." The Emperor's gaze darkened. "And how do we stop them?" A long silence followed. Then the high strategist spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "We don't." The chamber froze. The Emperor's fingers curled against the polished surface of the war table. Before he could speak, another voice interrupted. "There is one alternative." The words came from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, a lesser member of the council, rarely called upon in matters of war. The Emperor turned his cold gaze upon him. "Explain." The minister swallowed before speaking. "Humanity has not sought to destroy us, despite having every opportunity. They have not responded with overwhelming force. Instead, they sent us an offer." Murmurs spread across the chamber. An offer? The very idea was absurd. The Empire did not negotiate. It demanded. The Emperor's gaze hardened. "Continue." The minister straightened. "They have offered peace. No conditions, no demands. They are sending a single diplomat to speak with you, sire. One person." The room erupted into disbelief. A single diplomat? Against the Empire? It was an insult, a mockery. The Emperor raised a hand, silencing them. His mind worked quickly. Humanity had shown no signs of desperation. If they were sending an envoy, it was not out of weakness. This was something else. "And if we refuse?" the Emperor asked. The minister hesitated. "Then they will continue as they have. And we will lose." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the Emperor exhaled. "Let them come." 2 cycles later, she arrived. The imperial palace was a fortress of metal and glass, its walls etched with the history of conquests past. The grand hall had seen the submission of kings, the surrender of entire species. And now, it would witness the arrival of humanity's representative. The doors opened, and she stepped inside. She was unarmed. No guards flanked her. She wore no armor. No symbols of authority beyond the simple, tailored black uniform traced with red accents. Her blonde hair fell in smooth waves, her expression unreadable. She walked with a calmness that sent a ripple of unease through the assembled warlords and nobles. She approached the throne, her eyes never wavering from the emperor. When she stopped, she did not kneel. The silence was deafening. The emperor studied her, searching for weakness. A single human, a mere diplomat. Yet there was something unnatural in her composure. No fear, no hesitation. She was surrounded by enemies, and she stood as if she owned the room. "You are the human envoy," the emperor stated. She smiled. "I am." Her voice was steady, carrying through the vast hall. The emperor leaned forward slightly. "You have come alone. An insult or arrogance?" She tilted her head. "Neither. I came because you asked for peace." The warlord scoffed. The high strategist sneered. "You misunderstand, human. We did not ask. You forced our hand." She turned to him, her expression unchanging. "Is that what you believe?" The strategist faltered. The emperor narrowed his eyes. "You have offered peace without terms." "Why?" Her gaze never wavered. "Because we have already won." The chamber grew deathly still. She continued, her voice soft but unwavering. "Your fleets are in disarray. Your people are restless. Your supply chains are compromised. Your own advisors know the truth, even if they dare not speak it. Every path leads to collapse." The emperor's jaw tightened. "We still have power." Her smile did not fade. "For now." She took a slow step forward. No one dared move. "Your empire has ruled by strength. But strength alone is not enough. It never has been. You believe surrender is weakness. Yet survival is the only true power." The emperor felt a strange chill creep through him. For the first time in his long reign, he felt something foreign. Something impossible. Doubt. She folded her hands behind her back. "You do not need to lose everything. We are not your conquerors. We are simply your future." A heavy silence followed. The warlords, the strategists, the advisors, all of them had no words. The emperor exhaled slowly. He had lived through centuries of war, had crushed civilizations beneath his will. And yet, in that moment, he understood what had already happened. This was not a negotiation. It was an inevitability. He met her gaze, his voice heavy. "What do you propose?" Her smile widened, just slightly. "Let's talk." The war council chamber was silent. Not with the silence of respect, nor that of contemplation, but the raw, uneasy stillness of a predator realizing it has already been caught in a hunter's snare. The human woman stood at the center of it all, her expression calm, her posture unyielding. She had said the words none of them had dared even whisper, words that had broken the illusion of control the empire had clung to. The emperor reclined slightly in his throne, eyes sharp and calculating. His people, his most trusted advisors, had no answers. They had been outmaneuvered, not by an armada or a grand weapon, but by something far more insidious, an inevitability they had refused to acknowledge. "You claim we have already lost," he said, voice slow, deliberate. "Yet we sit within the heart of our empire, our world still standing, our fleets still operational. What exactly do you believe we have lost, human?" She did not look at the towering holographic displays showcasing the strength of the empire, nor at the gilded banners that represented centuries of conquest. She did not acknowledge the line of armored soldiers standing rigid at attention, weapons at the ready. Instead, she simply met his gaze, as if none of it mattered. "Control." The emperor narrowed his eyes, his grip tightening against the throne's armrests. "Explain." She clasped her hands behind her back, her movements measured, as though she had rehearsed this conversation 1,000 times. "Your empire was built on a foundation of absolute dominance. When you encountered resistance, you crushed it. When enemies rose against you, you drowned them in fire. That is the law of the strong, is it not?" Murmurs rippled through the gathered warlords. The high strategist's mandibles clicked together in agitation. "It is the law of survival," he corrected, his voice edged with contempt. She nodded slightly. And yet, you find yourselves here, facing a war you cannot win. Not because we outgun you, not because we overpower you, but because we understand something you do not. The Emperor watched her carefully. And what is that? She took a slow step forward, ignoring the sharp glance of one of the Imperial guards. The game has already changed. You are still fighting by the rules of the past, believing that power is measured in fleets and weapons. But wars are no longer won with brute force alone. They are won with ideas, with economies, with the will of those who serve under you. And in all of these, you are already losing. The High Strategist scoffed, folding his arms. Empty words. Our fleets still control the hyperlanes. Our armories are full, our troops disciplined. No war has ever been won without blood, human. You cannot simply think an empire into ruin. She tilted her head slightly. Can't we? For the first time since the meeting had begun, she turned, gesturing toward the great holographic displays. They flickered, shifting to show the Empire's vast territories, its sprawling dominion. Your supply chains are failing, she continued, her voice steady. We have not destroyed them. We have not needed to. The moment we understood how dependent you were on centralized distribution, we did not attack your fleets, we attacked your trade. We infiltrated your markets, destabilized your credits, shifted entire economies against you. The more you tried to reassert control, the worse it became. The Minister of Commerce, a pale-skinned creature with ink-dark eyes, stiffened. Lies, he hissed, though there was hesitation in his voice. She continued as if she hadn't heard him. Entire sectors are now self-sufficient, no longer waiting for imperial shipments. They have begun trading with us instead. They no longer need you. She turned back to the Emperor. That is not something you can undo with warships. The council chamber was filled with a suffocating tension. Some of the warlords shifted uncomfortably, exchanging uncertain glances. They knew. The Emperor could see it in their expressions. This was not a revelation. It was a confirmation of a fear they had dared not speak. She walked slowly, deliberately, past the rows of stunned advisors. Your people are beginning to question. They see your fleets failing to stop an enemy that never truly engages. They see your governors struggling to maintain order without direct intervention. And then they hear whispers that there is another way. That humanity does not conquer. That we build, we trade, we integrate. And suddenly, they start to wonder if they are on the wrong side of this war. The High Strategist slammed a fist against the table, his patience breaking. Enough! You speak as if our empire is on the verge of collapse. But we are still here. We still hold power. His eyes narrowed. You say you do not conquer. Then why are you here? If we are as doomed as you claim, why not let us fall on our own? She smiled then, the first genuine expression to cross her face. Because we don't want you to fall. We want you to evolve. The silence that followed was absolute. She turned back to the Emperor, who had remained still throughout it all, his mind working behind an expression of impassive stone. We have no interest in ruling over you. Humanity has no desire for an empire. But we do not tolerate threats, and we do not leave unfinished business. We could wait, let your empire tear itself apart, but that would be inefficient. Instead, we offer something better. The Emperor exhaled slowly. And what precisely do you offer? Her voice was steady. A future where your people do not have to suffer for your pride. A transition rather than a collapse. A place where your empire does not vanish, but is reborn. Stronger, stable, and part of something greater. There it was. The true purpose of this meeting. Not to demand surrender. Not to gloat over the empire's losses. But to extend a hand, offering salvation from a fate already set in motion. The Emperor sat back, his expression unreadable. And if we refuse? She met his gaze without hesitation. Then we will continue as we have. And in time, your empire will be nothing but a memory. The words hung heavy in the air. The warlords looked to their emperor, waiting, some with anger, some with fear. He was the pillar upon which their civilization stood. If he wavered, the empire wavered. If he fell, so did they all. For what felt like an eternity, he said nothing. Then, finally, he let out a quiet breath. "You speak with certainty," he murmured. "You have walked into the heart of my dominion and spoken of our demise as though it is already written." His eyes studied her, calculating. "And yet, you extend an alternative. A path where we do not fall, but instead change." She inclined her head. "Yes." A long silence stretched between them. Then, for the first time since the meeting had begun, the Emperor smiled. It was not a smile of amusement, nor one of defeat. It was the smile of a man who understood the game at last. "You are dangerous," he said softly. "Not because of what you can do, but because of what you already have done." She said nothing. The Emperor exhaled, and the weight of centuries seemed to settle upon him. Then, slowly, deliberately, he leaned forward. "Tell me," he said, "how this future of yours begins." The chamber was quieter than it had ever been. Not with the silence of defeat, nor even of contemplation, but with the careful, razor-thin stillness of history in the making. Every eye was on the Emperor. Every breath was held. The weight of his decision stretched across the gathered warlords, advisors, and commanders, each of them aware that, for the first time in centuries, the fate of the Galactic Empire was no longer in their hands alone. The human woman had not moved. She had not pressed for an answer, nor had she attempted to fill the silence with more words. She had merely waited, her posture unchanging, her confidence unshaken. Finally, the Emperor spoke. "If we were to accept your offer," he said slowly, each word deliberate, "it would mean undoing centuries of tradition, of rule, of a way of life that has shaped our people." She inclined her head slightly. "It would mean evolution." His lips pressed together, his fingers tapping against the armrest of his throne. "There will be resistance." She did not so much as blink. "Of course." He studied her, searching for any sign of hesitation. He found none. "Some of my warlords will not accept this," he warned. "They will see it as weakness." She allowed the smallest of smiles. "Then they will be the first to fall, with or without our interference. If they cannot adapt, they are already lost." A murmur ran through the warlords. The high strategist shifted his weight, his mandibles twitching with barely restrained frustration. "You speak as if we are already defeated, as if this is the only course left to us." She turned her gaze on him, calm but unyielding. "Because it is." The Emperor's fingers stilled. A flicker of something passed through his eyes. Not anger, nor even resignation. Understanding. Slowly he stood. The motion commanded attention, silencing the room before even a single word had been spoken. When he finally spoke, his voice carried with it the weight of an empire. "I will not allow my people to fade into history." His gaze swept across the gathered warlords, his tone sharp as a blade. "And I will not allow this empire to crumble because of outdated pride." The high strategist tensed. "Your Majesty!" The Emperor cut him off with a single raised hand. "Enough!" His voice did not waver. "The empire will endure not because of war, but because we will choose to adapt. We will change, and in doing so, we will thrive." The human woman said nothing. She merely waited. The high strategist's mandibles clattered together, his frustration mounting. "This is a mistake." The Emperor turned his gaze to him, eyes cold. "A mistake would be believing we can fight a war we have already lost." For a moment no one spoke. The weight of the decision pressed down upon the chamber like a storm waiting to break. And then, slowly, the warlords began to bow their heads, one by one, acknowledging the inevitable. The human woman finally inclined her head. "Then let us begin." The transition was not immediate, nor was it simple. The resistance within the empire was swift, brutal, and ultimately futile. Those who clung to the old ways fought bitterly, but without the full backing of their emperor, their power waned. Entire sectors, once ruled through fear, now found themselves at a crossroads. The choice was theirs: remain isolated, clinging to a crumbling empire, or integrate into a new order where strength was measured not by conquest, but by prosperity. Not all chose wisely. The warlords who rejected the new path found themselves increasingly isolated, their resources dwindling, their influence eroding. Some fled to the farthest reaches of space, clinging to the ghosts of their former glory. Others tried to fight, only to find that war, once their greatest weapon, had turned against them. The human woman did not command fleets. She did not dictate terms through force. And yet, as the months passed, it became undeniable. She had reshaped the empire without ever firing a shot. The emperor remained firm in his decision. Though he faced opposition, though the weight of centuries fought against him, he did not waver. He had seen the truth. He had accepted it. And because of that, he ensured his people's survival. One evening, as the transition continued, he stood upon the balcony of his palace, watching as the lights of his capital world flickered beneath him. The woman stood beside him, silent for a long while before she finally spoke. "You made the right choice." He did not turn to face her. "Perhaps, or perhaps I simply chose the only path left to me." She smiled faintly. "That's what the right choice usually looks like." He exhaled slowly, watching as the first of the new trade ships, emblazoned not with imperial insignia but with the markings of cooperation, lifted off into the stars. "Tell me," he murmured, "how long until my people stop seeing you as an enemy?" She considered this for a moment. "That's up to them." The emperor closed his eyes briefly. Then, with the weight of his empire on his shoulders, he opened them once more and faced the future.